Zoroark is coming soon to Pokemon Go. In fact, in some parts of the world, Zoroark is already here in Pokemon Go, but that event got a little bit botched, right? So in this video, I'm going to let you know just how good Zoroark is going to be in both PvP and raids, and I guess I'll also fill you in on the drama surrounding Zoroark's initial release here in Pokemon Go. So Zoroark, why is it only partially released in the game right now? Well, it was supposed to be part of an event. The Shuppet Spotlight Hour was going to be a special secret little surprise for us players, and it would end up being the Zorua, which is the pre-evolution to Zoroark, is going to be a Spotlight Hour of that. But they weren't going to tell us. It was going to be a little trick-or-treat surprise for us, because instead of Shuppet spawning, it would actually be our buddy Pokemon. So if you had a shiny Mewtwo or something as your buddy Pokemon, that'd be spawning all over the map. That insanity! Holy shoot, what a treat, right? But that treat would end up being a trick, because when you catch it, the illusion would break, much like Ditto, and you'd be capturing a Zorua, which is perfectly fine because it's a new Pokemon. In the main series games, it has this illusion ability where it takes the appearance of other Pokemon, so it has that kind of Ditto effect going on already, right? So it'd be a fun, cute, exciting way to release this new fan favorite type Pokemon here, right? However, there was a little bit of a glitch in the system, a little bit of a bug that Pokemon Go just must have not have seen in their playtesting, that they absolutely did. They for sure tested, played tested, and made sure this event would run smooth before launching the event. But what went unnoticed is the fact that the Zoruas that you capture would have the same stats and moveset as your buddy Pokemon, right? Which isn't how Zoroark functions in the main series games. It's not like Ditto where it copies the Pokemon entirely. It's not like Smeargle where it copies Pokemon's attacks. It just copies their appearance until the illusion breaks, and then surprise, it's actually Zoroark. So they canceled the event. They blocked Zorua and Zoroark from being able to be featured in any sort of PvP or anything. And all the Shuppet Spotlight Hours are still Shuppet Spotlight Hours now until they figure out how to resolve this issue. They got Ditto in the game, no problem, but somehow it's different for Zorua and Zoroark, so dang. Hopefully they can get figured out soon so we can all get Zoroark in the game soon, because this is a pretty exciting Pokemon. It's definitely a fan favorite, highly anticipated Pokemon, lots of hype surrounding it. And then when it comes to raids and PvP, it's not exactly the greatest right now, but it's not too shabby either. So let's get into it. Well, taking a peek at its stats here on Game Press, you can see it's a Dark-type Pokemon with a 250 base attack stat, which isn't the most impressive attack stat in the world, but it's not bad, right? What is lacking, though, what is pretty bad, is the bulk side, where its defense and stamina are very, very low, right? So for PvP, this can kind of be a little bit of a death knell for a Pokemon, right? It could have like a Haunter Gengar kind of factor going on for the Great League and Ultra League that could allow it to spice ahead. But yeah, as the stats are right now, the deck is definitely stacked against it. Swapping over to pvpoke.com, you can see that it does have a similar stat product to Gengar, as predicted, right? Very glass cannon type Pokemon. So if Gengar can kind of make its way in the meta, I'd say in the Great League nowadays, and in the Ultra League too for the most part, Gengar is more of a Spice or Cup type Pokemon. Well, if Gengar could make its way through and still shows up in Cup formats and as a spicy pick from time to time, Zoroark could stand to come in that way too. To add, it also has Shadow Claw, which is pretty nice for that. Now, what it doesn't have compared to Gengar and Haunter, though, is a stab bonus, same type attack bonus on the Shadow Claw, so it doesn't chunk quite as well, but it is a dark type, so it is kind of doing the job a little bit different, right? And then another thing it doesn't have is a low energy cost charge move. So Gengar here has Shadow Punch, same with the Haunter, right? 35 energy cost charge move. Not the strongest attack in the game, right? But it's a good bait move. It's a good way to pressure your opponents. Zoroark's earliest charge move is going to be Foul Play at 45 energy cost, which is a lot of energy difference from the Shadow Punches, especially when you're using multiple of them. And yeah, you can see here it only has Flamethrower as a third attack here, so it doesn't seem to be getting any quicker. And then to add to that, Shadow Ball is a better nuke attack than what Foul Play is. I mean, it is a 55 energy cost charge move, so it is slower than what Foul Play is. So you could maybe think of the speed difference being made up a little bit that way. But yeah, no, Foul Play definitely is not a nuke attack, where Shadow Ball could be considered a nuke attack. And then to add to that, Gengar has the Mystery Box factor going on. It could be using Focus Blast, and it could be using Sludge Bomb instead. Zoroark also has that Sludge Bomb for the Mystery Box situation, but once again, what it doesn't have, like the Shadow Claw, is a same type attack bonus on the Sludge Bomb. So even though Sludge Bomb is somewhat of a nuke attack, maybe you could consider it to be that, it's definitely much more of a nuke attack for Gengar and Haunter than it is for Zoroark. So I would say, as this Glass Cannon roll, the deck is definitely stacked against it. Maybe in the future, if it gets its signature attack, Night Daze, and Night Daze is like a 35 or 40 energy cost charge move, and it maintains its debuff chance, and maybe adds a little bit of power to kick it up a little bit for Zoroark here, because it's only going to be used on Zoroark. Technically, Lunala can also learn it, so could be a way to kick up both of them, because Lunala is not looking all that great right now for Master League PvP. That could be a route for Zoroark to get more power, but I think Zoroark still has the deck stacked against it, at least in Great League PvP, because it is a Dark, not a Ghost type Pokemon. When it comes to Dark type Pokemon in the game, Dark type coverage isn't as ubiquitous as Ghost type coverage is. If you saw my Pokemon Go type tier list for PvP, yeah, Dark definitely plays second fiddle to the Ghost type, because Ghost type has more neutral options, right? So when it comes to the Dark type role, you have to be doing a little bit extra along with being a Dark type. So just being a pure spammy Glass Cannon Dark type, I feel just isn't enough. I don't know. I think the main way Zoroark is really going to stand out in cups or in the meta in any way, shape, or form is going to be through its signature attack Night Daze in the future. So even though Zoroark doesn't look that hot in PvP, it could make up for it in the raid side of the force with that big attack stat. You can see here using the DPS TDO spreadsheet here on GamePress, sorted by DPS, and then also be mindful that there are Pokemon that aren't currently in the game right now, also featured on the list, such as Ash Greninja. But yeah, you can see here that it's not making page 1, so even though it does have that Glass Cannon kind of setup going on, it doesn't have enough of the cannon going on to really stand out. It does show up on page 2 though, being slightly better than Mega Gengar with exclusively Dark type attacks, so obviously Mega Gengar is going to be better than it with the Ghost type attacks. But yeah, on kind of par with Mega Sharpedo, you know, a little bit behind the Darkrai there. So not exactly terrible, but definitely not exactly a bread and butter pick. And then you also have to consider the fact that Dark types are always going to be in competition with Ghost type Pokemon in raids, because they have the same exact super effective coverage going on for the most part. So Psychic type raids, Ghost type raids are going to feature both Dark and Ghost type Pokemon as attackers. So yeah, compared to the Ghost type Pokemon, Zoroark looks even worse in that situation. However, Zoroark does have its signature attack going on, which is Night Daze. For the purpose of this video, I'm actually going to be emulating Night Daze as a Dark type Psystrike. And you might think that that's a little bit too strong here, but sorting this by DPS times DPE, which is a general metric for charge moves overall goodness, you can see Psystrike is actually fairly tame compared to other double bar charge moves that are signature attacks, right? So you got like Blast Burn, Crab Hammer, Sacred Sword, Meteor Mash, Frenzy Plant, Hydro Cannon, Aura Sphere, you know, so you got a lot of other multi-bar charge moves that outperform Psystrike. So as a signature attack, I'd say Psystrike is a fairly modest assessment, right? So yeah, if I go to the DPS TDO spreadsheet here, go to moves, and I customize Night Daze having Psystrike's attacks, and then I go to the species, I go to Zoroark, and then I give it Night Daze. You can see that all of a sudden, Zoroark becomes one of the best Dark type attackers in the game. I mean, of course it is, it's got Dark type Psystrike going on, but as far as signature attacks are concerned, this is fairly reasonable to assume, right? Even if it was slightly worse, we could see it being like better than, if not as good as, a lot of the shadow options as well. So even if they made Night Daze a little bit more tame, made it something like Rock Wrecker or something, Zoroark would still be one of the better Dark type attackers in the game. But how does that compare to the Ghost types? Well, here you can see it's got 18.45 DPS, right? So if I change this to Ghost, and yeah, you can see 18.45 does outpace Gengar, which is, you know, the bread and butter, you know, high DPS Ghost type Pokemon that's not a Shadow or a Mega. So overall, I'd say Night Daze Zoroark does have a lot of potential to be a very good raid attacker in the future, and depending on how they balance the stats on that, it could be pretty interesting in PvP too. However, given the whole bulk situation going on for it, I don't think Zoroark will ever be a household name in PvP. At any rate, that's all I gotta say on Zoroark right now. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, maybe you want an analysis on the Hisuian form of Zoroark. the Ghost Normal version? That sounds pretty spicy. Well, let me know. And make sure to subscribe to SwagTips.
SwagTips.
I'd also like to give a special shout out to these patron supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description.